Most certainly that's remarkable, said Kay. Drawing Frida to his bosom, she submitted at once, although with bent head. But in my opinion, that only proves the possibility of your being mistaken in some respects. You're quite right, for instance, in saying that I am a mere nothing compared with Clam. And even though I insist on speaking to Clam in spite of that, and I'm not dissuaded even by your arguments, that does not mean at all that I am able to face Clam without a door between us, or that I mayn't run from the room at the very sight of him. But such a conjecture, even though well-founded, is no valid reason in my eyes for refraining from the attempt. If I only succeed in holding my ground, there's no need for him to speak to me at all. It will be sufficient for me to see what effect my words have on him. And if they have no effect, or if he simply ignores them, I shall, at any rate, have the satisfaction of having spoken my mind freely to a great man. But you, with your wide knowledge of men and affairs, and Frida, who was only yesterday Clam's mistress, I see no reason for questioning that title, could certainly procure me an interview with Clam quite easily. If it could be done in no other way, I could surely see him in the Herrenhof. Perhaps he's still there. It's impossible, said the landlady, and I can see that you're incapable of understanding why. But just tell me what you want to speak to Clam about. About Frida, of course, said Kay. About Frida? Repeated the landlady incomprehendingly, and turned to Frida. Do you hear that, Frida? It's about you. He wants to speak. To Clam. To Clam. Oh, said Kay, you're a clever and admirable woman, and yet every trifle upsets you. Well, there it is. I want to speak to him about Frida. That's not monstrous. It's only natural. And you're quite wrong, too, in supposing that from the moment of my appearance, Frida has ceased to be of any importance to Clam. You underestimate him if you suppose that. I am well aware that it's impertinence in me to lay down the law to you in this manner, but I must do it. I can't be the cause of any alteration in Clam's relation to Frida. Either there was no essential relationship between them, and that's what it amounts to if people deny that he was ever her honored lover, in which case there is still no relationship between them, or else there was a relationship, and then how could I, a cipher in Clam's eyes, as you rightly point out, how could I make any difference to it? One flies to such suppositions in the first moment of alarm, but the smallest reflection must correct one's bias. Anyhow, let us hear what Frida herself thinks about it. With a faraway look in her eyes and her cheek on Kay's breast, Frida said, "It's certain, as Mother says, that Clam will have nothing more to do with me. But I agree that it's not because of you, darling. Nothing of that kind could upset him. I think, on the other hand, that it was entirely his work that we found each other under the bar counter. We should bless that hour and not curse it." "Is that so?" said Kay, slowly. For Frida's words were sweet, and he shut his eyes a moment or two to let their sweetness penetrate him. If that is so, there is less ground than ever to flinch from an interview with Clam. Upon my word, said the landlady with her nose in the air. You put me in mind of my own husband. You're just as childish and obstinate as he is. You've only been a few days in the village, and you already think you know everything better than people who have spent their entire lives here, better than an old woman like me, and better than Frida, who has seen and heard so much in the Herrenhof. I don't deny that it's possible once in a while to achieve something in the teeth of every rule and tradition. I've never experienced anything of that kind myself, but I believe there are precedents for it. That may well be, but it certainly doesn't happen in the way that you're trying to do it, simply by saying no, no, and sticking to your own opinions and flouting the most well-meant advice. Do you think it's you I'm anxious about? Did I bother about you in the least so long as you were by yourself? Even though it would have been a good thing and saved a lot of trouble, the only thing I ever said to my husband about you was, keep your distance where he's concerned. And I should have done that myself to this very day if Frida hadn't have gotten mixed up with your affairs. It's her you have to thank, whether you like it or not, for my interest in you, even for my noticing your existence at all. And you can't simply shake me off, for I'm the only person who looks after little Frida, and you're strictly answerable to me. Maybe Frida is right, and all that has happened is Clam's will. But I have nothing to do with Clam here and now. I shall never speak to him. He's quite beyond my reach. But you're sitting here, keeping my Frida, and being kept yourself. I don't see why I shouldn't tell you. By me. Yes, by me, young man. For let me see you find a lodging anywhere in this village if I throw you out, even if it were only in the dog kennel. Thank you, said Kay. That's frank, and I believe you absolutely. So my position is as uncertain as that, is it? And Frida's position too? No, interrupted the landlady furiously. Frida's position in this respect has nothing at all to do with yours. Frida belongs to my house, and nobody is entitled to call her position here uncertain. All right, said Kay. I'll grant you that too, especially since Frida, for some reason I'm not able to fathom, seems to be too afraid of you to interrupt. Stick to me then for the present. My position is quite uncertain. You don't deny that. Indeed, you rather go out of your way to emphasize it, like everything else you say that has a fair proportion of truth in it. But it isn't absolutely true. For instance, I know where I could get a good bed if I wanted. Where? Cried Frida. And the landlady simultaneously, and so eagerly that they might have had the same motive for asking. At Barnabas's, said Kay. That scum? Cried the landlady. That rascally scum? At Barnabas's? Do you hear? And she turned towards the corner. But the assistants had long quitted it and were now standing arm in arm behind her. And so now, as if she needed support, she seized one of them by the hand. "Do you hear where the man goes hobnobbing with the family of Barnabas? Oh, certainly he'd get a bed there. I only wish he'd stayed there overnight instead of in the Herrenhof. But where were you two?" "Madam," said Kay before the assistants had time to answer, "these are my assistants, but you're treating them as if they were your assistants and my keepers. In every other respect, I am willing at least to argue the point with you courteously, but not where my assistants are concerned. That's too obvious a matter. I request you therefore not speak to my assistants, and if my request proves ineffective, I shall forbid my assistants to answer you." "So, I'm not allowed to speak to you," said the landlady. And they laughed, all three, the landlady scornfully, but with less anger than Kay had expected, and the assistants in their usual manner, which meant both much and little, and disclaimed all responsibility. "Don't get angry," said Frida. "You must try to understand why we're upset. I can put it in this way. It's all owing to Barnabas that we belong to each other now. When I saw you for the first time in the bar, when you came in arm in arm with Olga, well, I knew something about you. But I was quite indifferent to you. I was indifferent not only to you, but to nearly everything. Yes, nearly everything. For at that time I was discontented about lots of things, and often annoyed, but it was a queer discontent and a queer annoyance. For instance, if one of the customers in the bar insulted me, and they were always after me, you saw what kind of creatures they were. But there were many worse than that. Clam servants weren't the worst. Well, if one of them insulted me, what did it matter to me? I regarded it as if it happened years before, or as if it happened to someone else, or as if I'd only heard tell of it, or as if I had already forgotten about it. But I can't describe it. I can hardly imagine it now. So different has everything become since losing Clam." And Frida broke off short, letting her head drop sadly, folding her hands on her bosom.